Okay, so this is certainly the last time I'm going to try and make this video because I've failed it a couple of times now, and it's just annoying. So if there's some inaccuracies or errors in here, fuck that, it's staying. Okay, so against Destro, I'll show you a few. I've got quite a few examples lined up because there's quite a few ways you can play these games. Okay, it's not a one play style matchup. Nothing with necro is. The reason necro is interesting is because it's very hard to play well, and if your opponent plays poorly, and if you play really well, it can be really good. Now, you're going to see here in my video, this is an old video, March 23rd, 2018. In fact, I made it quite a while before I even put it on YouTube. So one of the things you're trying to do at the start here, why am I, okay, let's say this clearly. Why am I here instead of in my base? Like, let's say my base is here, right? My base is, why am I not in my base at the back? Because I want to create doubt in his mind, basically. There's a lot of mind games that go into this type of thing. Now, a lot of the time especially against inexperienced or bad players, if you go out, if you push out immediately, they're going to think, because they, like, as a Destro, you don't want to be necessarily sitting next to an necro right at the start, because I can just 5 debuff him if we both top tallies, and I'm gonna have like 7 seconds of ability to try and land debuffs. He's not, like, he's gonna think to himself, because I get to here, like, best case scenario, I get here and he's here, and you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't really want to be right next to the Destro either if we don't have talismans up, right? What's gonna happen is he's gonna be here and you're gonna be here, right? A good percentage of the time, he's gonna pop his talisman and start running at you, which means you can run back. And in this matchup, in this, time in 2018, this matchup, I just wanted to wait out his guts. That was my whole goal. So if he pops a talisman here, I can run back into my base, and I can waste an extra 10, 15 seconds running back into my base, rather than him starting here, in which case I have nowhere to kite back to, right? I'm in base, right? I have nowhere to kite back to, and he gets a little bit more of an advantage. He gets a little bit extra time on his hands. So just the idea here is to push out, to force him to be here, because if I wasn't here, he wouldn't be here. He would be here most likely. He would be behind this pillar. It just gives me a little bit more space to work with. And this is true in a lot of matchups where you're trying to create space, trying to mind game your opponents when you can. So always getting arena dominance or arena control is a good thing, even if you don't want to be pushing out. And in most matchups, you really do want to be pushing out, like almost every one. But even in situations where you might not want to be pushing out, or on a class where you don't want to be pushing out, you don't want to be fighting right away, getting arena dominance is good. Like an ES against a DA. Right, in general, and yes, you don't want to be sitting next to the DA. That's retarded, right? But if the DA, at the beginning of the game, if you push out, and you start running out, he might see you start running out, and he stays in base. And if he stays in base, that means when he pushes out on you, you have plenty of room to run back, before you even have to cast the talisman. Now, that being said, if he pushes out instead of staying back, you're going to have to run back if you're on an ES anyways, because you don't want to be next to him. So it's just a mind game. It's an attempted mind game. Okay. So let's look at, now the thing is, when I'm saying in this video, in this example, I really want to, sorry. I'm just trying to wait out 60 seconds. I do not think you can be doing that anymore. Okay, I don't think you can be waiting 60 seconds anymore and waiting for this shit to happen. I think that you need to do what Merc is going to do in this game. There's actually 2 things you can do in this game, and Merc does, which one does he do? In this game specifically, there's 2 ways you can play it. You can try and 100 to 0 them, which I'll explain, and you can try and fear and kill them through fear. So this is the one where he kills them through fear. So Hoodlum's staying back at the start. I'm not really sure why. And what's going to happen is he's going to start pushing out, and Merc is going to cast a guard talisman. Now that Destros have rush, you have to be a little bit faster on how you cast your guard talisman, which makes it a little bit unfortunate, because it used to be that you could cast guard talisman when he's about here, and if he runs back, you're still going to get a nuke off when he's at 900 range, right? But now you have to cast it so fucking early. Honestly, for me, I would be behind this pillar now that Destros have rush, and when he gets to like here, I might start casting it, because then he's got an obstacle, right? He can't just rush right on me, and if he tries to run away, I can peek out and get a shot off, right? And that's that peek out and get a shot off. This is relevant for the DPS him down strategy, which I think probably is the inferior strategy. However, I think you need to test both to really figure out which one's working and which one's less effective. But this is the other way. So Merc is going to pop his guard talisman. Hoodlum should be running back. This is Kiss. This is like this is supposed to be the best Destro in the game, and this is supposed to be the best Necro in the game. And neither of them play currently, but I'm pretty sure in most people's minds, this is still the best Destro, and this is still the best Oli farmer. Merc is the best Oli farmer because he plays Necro and DA at a very high level. So, and he played Tyrant as well, all of which I played, and I'm obviously better. But most people think of Merc. Merc got paid by Avtish to play this character, okay? So he's really fucking good. So Hoodlum should fall back. You don't want to be next to a Necro when you have no guard talisman and he has a guard talisman as a Destro. You're just fucking yourself. So what happens here? Merc is going to land Doom, which is like the most likely debuff to land through Guts. Just for the record, Guts is a 70% debuff resist. Fear lands 70% of the time. So if you get out the calculator, right? 0.7 times 0.7, 50%, I think it might be a little bit lower than that. I think you might have about a 30% chance to land. It's actually not 0.7 times 0.7. It's 0.7 times 0.3. Yeah, 20%. That sounds about right. Now, with Doom, which I think is about a 0.8, I think you have closer to 30%. I think Doom lands quite a bit more than Fear. These things aren't all exact, okay? But Doom's going to land a lot more. So if you ever have these situations, a lot of the time you want to have Doom up. So anyways, chasing him around the pillar when you have Doom, when you've already doomed him, is not a good idea in my opinion, because a good Destro, or even a semi-competent Destro, or even a Destro with 2 hands and half of a brain can kite you around a pillar. They can also kite you around in the Fountain Arena as well. The only arena where they can't kite you is in the open arena. But in the open arena, what the Destro will do, if we imagine there's no pillars here and this is the base for the open arena, right, with the corners, he'll get in this corner, he'll pop UD Talisman as you push up on him, and then he'll run by you with UD Talisman up. And if you've been nuking him, you can actually accidentally get him into Zealot, and because he's got UD Talisman up, you're not killing him. So you can actually fuck yourself, but you can be careful with that. But against bad Destros that don't pop a UD Talisman in that situation, you can't kill them. But in this arena, you're not killing him. So, what happens? Destro's behind the pillar, waiting for Doom to come down. He's going to start pushing out so he's trying to time this. So, as Doom comes off, he's right here instead of beforehand. He's trying to just time it so that Doom isn't necessarily like quite ready to be used by Merc as he's pushing out. But what happens? Merc's going to land Fear, and then he's going to insta-kill him. That's how it's done. This is, I think, most likely going to be your best bet to actually win in the current state of Olympiad, where there's Garnets, where there's Brooches, where there's all this shit. You're going to do a lot of damage to this guy. You're going to do a ton of damage to this guy. If you can land Fear and you have a good weapon, you're probably going to kill him. Now, the problem is, the biggest fucking problem I find as someone with transfer pain against Destros and against anything that tries to DPS you, elements don't get transferred, which means Destros are just going to fuck your day up like stupid hard, okay? Because he's going to do, if you don't have good element, he's going to do 1,000 damage plus 1,000 element. And that 1,000 damage is going to get split 500, 500. But the 1,000 element doesn't get split. So you take fucking 1,500, right? And your pet only takes 500 TP, which is fucked. This is fucked, okay? So this might not work consistently. Probably the other one doesn't work consistently either. What is the other strategy? Okay, the other strategy you can imagine as a situation that kind of happens similar to this. Okay, I will say it out loud, okay, and show you how, and tell you how it works. Okay, Destro runs up to you, right? Let's say you have some distance first. Destro runs up to you. You pop guard, okay? You nuke him, and he's going to get to 0 HP, and he's going to have Immortal up. So what you do is you come around this corner here, and you get to here, and you're going to pop a UD Talisman, and you're going to pop... I really hope you have a Garnet, because this probably won't work without a Garnet active, where it lasts, what, like 7 seconds? Because if you don't have UD, he's just going to fucking 3-shot you, or 4-shot you. If you don't have guard, he's going to fear you, or hit you with the knockdown, and then your UD will be up by the time you're out of that. So you need to come around the corner, or optimally, actually, rather than even coming around the corner, you can just do it like kind of next to him, so he can't kite around this pillar quite as well. And if he does, like for example, if you're here and he's here and you're here, right? your Y, okay? And he sees you pop UD and Garnet, he's going to try and run away, right? Which means you can run away to another pillar because you're at a better position to run to that pillar, and you can try and play around that. But again, this is not perfect. I think this is a strategy that can work against shitty Destros that don't know what the fuck they're doing, because if he realizes that you can't nuke him down, or he can't, potentially kill you, or not even that he can't kill you, but this is his worst potential to win the matchup, he will run around the corner. And if he runs around that corner and you run to another pillar, he's just going to get out, and before you can even nuke him, he's going to rush you next time, and you're going to have a very bad spot. However, it does help that if he comes around here and you go over, let's say for example you get here because you can't see the other pillar, but you would be getting to this pillar, not that pillar. So you go there, you can try double talismaning the second time where you guard and UD, but again, he can just run away, and you're basically fucked. Potentially, you could try using sleep. I think sleep might work, but actually, as I think about that, they do have Lionheart now, which means sleep probably won't work, which means you're probably completely fucked. But in any case, that's what you're trying to do. Now, if we're looking at the land rates, so you have Guts, which is a 70% resist. Actually, Zealot is not that much more. So if we look at Zealot, which should be learned around level 60, maybe 58, Zealot is learned, and at this high level, it gives you debuff resist 80%. So it's actually not that much more than Guts. You can actually win matchups where someone goes into Zealot and you land a debuff. But it's not a very high win rate. So again, my advice, pop your guard talisman, try and land a fear, pray to God that you land a fear. Potentially against people with high element, you actually might have to double talisman at the beginning, which means you need to be very quick. So if you're ever double talismaning, I'll tell you my binds. I have Alt plus Q, this is change 1. Alt plus E, Alt plus A, Alt plus D. These are all in this row here, okay? Then I have cast is G, V, B, no wait, G, V, G, H, V, B, G, H, V, B, right? So what you have to do is you have to be very fucking careful with how you transfer your talismans, because if I cast both of these two talismans, let's say these two are guard, and these two are UD, okay? If you cast, guard 1 and UD 1, and then you try and change, you're not going to have them off cooldown before your talismans are up. What you actually have to do is you have to go guard 1, change talismans from guard 1 to guard 2, and then UD, well, depending on the situation, you can do this in either way, then UD 1 and change talisman from UD 1 to UD 2. So you actually have to be incredibly quick about how you do this, because you can't cast both and then switch both. You need to cast 1, change 1, cast 2, change 2. You have to be very careful about that if you're ever double talismaning. Otherwise, you're not going to have the ability to pop your second double talisman. I mean, oftentimes you can't even pop second double talisman in the middle of a fight, but potentially. All right, so potentially you have to double talisman and then try and land a fear. Or you can try and nuke him down. Again, I don't think either will give you a super high win rate, but both give you a somewhat of a chance. Yeah, both give you somewhat of a chance. Now, why am I saying that you shouldn't be running around a pillar and trying to avoid, right? Why am I saying that that's not going to work out? Well, if we look at Kiss's video, which is right here, he should have an example of why this doesn't work. Let's show you. Let's show what happens. Someone's going to try and run away from him around a pillar on a pillar arena, and it should be very obvious why this doesn't work. Okay, so here's Gear. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Let's look for another pillar arena. Pillar arena. Here's a pillar arena right here. Should be up next. R4N. That's what happens. R4N is going to go close to him. He's going to pop. Yeah, there's the debuffs. What's happening here? He's running around, and all Hoodlum has to do is get kind of close, and then he's going to pop the fear, and he's going to get feared through the pillar. That's how it works. That's why you can't really run away. Against really shitty Destros, it works occasionally. If you have epics and they don't have epics, I think this is actually a viable strategy if you're good at it, because their fear, they'll get it off one time. You can see it. This cooldown, he's only going to get it off once. So if you have epics and he doesn't, he's not going to land it that consistently, which means you can just kite around, or you can try the super special fucking tactic where you try and core his fear. So you can actually core someone's fear. Most people don't know this. Core, right? Let's say core, right? C for core has a 0.3-ish second cast time. Okay? Fear is fear. It lands instantly. However, core cast time cannot be canceled. So if they fear within this 0.3 seconds where it's casting, if their fear debuff pops up on you, you will core their fear. It will cleanse the fear after it stops casting. So if you have time, right, 0, fucking 0.1, right, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, right, like this. If you cast core here, and he casts, and not that he casts fear, the fear debuff has to proc. This is why this is incredibly luck based, because the fear debuff often it's variable. It's based on the server updating, I think, which means sometimes fear the animation will show and it won't pop up for like a good, half a second, a good fucking, a good like 0.2 seconds. Other times it'll pop up instantly. But let's say it pops up instantly and he casts fear and it lands on you here. Then core will finish here, right? This is when core finishes. Your debuff will be gone. So you can actually try that against the destroyer fear as well if you really want. Anyways, so that's basically how you have to play against Destro. Again, you're probably not going to have a shit ton of luck. It's probably not going to work that perfectly well. But you have to try whatever you can. Now, against Summoner, this is much more interesting. I think Summoner is a much more interesting matchup that has plenty of ways in which you can try and play it. I will highlight one thing for you, though. Let's see if I can find something to highlight. I'll highlight this here. So, I'm just going to make this my all-inclusive fucking necro video, okay? Because this works a little bit better if you do an all-inclusive necro video. So I can just link it to people. Okay. Let's see, what can I show you that's interesting about these matchups? So here, again, the way you want to do this, chaos or weakness. Chaos, weakness, it doesn't matter which one you do first. Chaos, weakness, gloom, anchor, question mark, chaos, fear. Fear. This is the one you land. Anchor, question mark. Why anchor, question mark? So let's make this weakness, right? Because anchor will lower your cast time, your debuff break time slightly. However, you oftentimes want anchor up. What happens is if you cast this as chaos instead of anchor, chaos has like a 0.1, 0.2 second cooldown before you're ready to actually cast it. Because you're just casting too fast, it's not off cooldown yet. Which means anchor bridges that gap between the cooldown being ready, right? So if you use anchor, you want to make sure that you use chaos second, okay? You want to use chaos last, because if you use weakness, you're going to have the same cooldown problem. However, if you want anchor up, especially on matchups where you are on the pillar arena, the 4-pillar arena, right? You want anchor up most of the time. You use this slower. If you're against a necro standing right next to each other, you almost always want to be using the faster of the two debuff break patterns. However, if you're a lower level necro or he has epics and you don't, you want to have anchor up and you use the slower one anyways. And that's the thing. Silence also has, so land rate wise, fear equals about 0.7, 70%. Gloom is like 0.9 or even 95. Anchor, right, is about 0.9 as well. 0.9. Silence is about 0.8, and Doom is about 0.8 as well. So these land better, but someone can cleanse, someone can core a silence and not they can't core a fear, right? So you have to be careful. You know, if they don't have epics, silence is actually your winning play. It's actually a more winning play. You're going to win if you both break talismans at the same rate, and neither of you has epics, or even a liberate talisman, because I think a liberate talisman, I forget. I think core works against silence but not against doom, but liberate works against both, something like that. But if you don't have any way to get rid of it, silence will give you a better win rate, just so you're aware. Anyways, so one of the things I'll mention as well is that a lot of people have come to the conclusion that it is faster to break a debuff talisman not using the pet stun, because the pet stun is a little bit glitchy. It causes some specific problems, and you have to stop doing anything in order to cast it. However, this is not generally true. If you cast it at the right moment in the middle of casting a different spell, casting your pet debuff as part of your 5 debuff break is significantly faster. So always use it. And if someone's retarded and they don't use it, like a lot of people are, and they don't use their pet to break a debuff talisman, you will beat them every time in necro vs necro. Okay. So what happens here? So I'll explain this matchup here quickly, versus DA. Before I get into the summoner thing, versus DA. So one of the things you can do here against the DA is you try and nuke his pet. Now the goal actually, and I'm really bad at recognizing the timing here. The goal is to, one, you prevent the pet from kind of canceling you a lot of the time. You also prevent the pet from damaging you and canceling your second talisman, which happens an unfortunately large portion of the time. But also, when they cast UD on the pet, a lot of the time they take a little while to cancel UD on themselves. So if you quickly realize they cast UD on the pet and you push up to them, a lot of the time you can catch them standing still, and you can actually 5 debuff them quickly if they're slow at canceling UD. And I think a lot of newer or less experienced players are very slow at canceling UD on themselves when they UD on the pet. So definitely something to think about. You force UD on the pet, you run after them. But this is honestly the Hail Mary strategy. You do this against someone who you think can avoid you, or you can do it against someone that you know for sure can't avoid you for the second talisman. Like turn on, I'm pretty sure he's not going to be able to avoid me on the second talisman here, so I just need to make sure that I can cast my second talisman, and causing the pet to UD means I can cast my second talisman for sure. Now the other thing you can do is you can early cast a second talisman. If you see this is fairly early, but you can cast a second talisman even earlier. So I cast it at 4, reasonably to cover up so both your talismans never have a break between them. 3 seconds. You can cast it at 5. What does that mean? That means exactly what happens here is essentially forced to happen. Turn on will run away and try and cast his talisman. This is a mistake. Do not do this if you play DA. What does this mean? He will get an extra timer on the talisman. However, he does not need extra time on the talisman. If both our talismans break at the same time, he will win. Okay? What he needs is to make sure I don't break his. So casting it late like this and allowing me to get right next to him before it's finished, and I don't get right next to him, but allowing me to get right next to him would be even better, means I can break 5 debuffs before he can go anywhere. You do not want this. This is the worst possible situation. You really don't want to let that happen. So as a DA, make sure you don't let that happen. As a necro, make sure you try and cast the second talisman early instead of at the same time. Instead of just trying to overlap your talismans so there's no break, you cast it early so you get next to the DA while they're casting their talisman. And when they come out of talisman, you're going to be able to 5 debuff them even on the pillar arena before they get around the corner away from you. Just a thought, something to think about. Okay. Now, let's see, is there anything else interesting here? Okay. So you're going to see a matchup that I play here that's somewhat interesting. Actually, I will go to a different video of mine and show you something else that's a little bit more interesting. Stealth Necro Oli Final is right there. Okay. So what happens in this video that's somewhat interesting? Well, I will show you how you used to have to play against a summoner. Okay, so in my opinion, the best way that it used to be to play against summoners in the previous meta, before they changed the way that the Banes work, because before the Banes would go through your talisman and take away Windwalk and Haste and Acumen from you before even through your talisman. So what do I do here? Instead of going straight to him, I'm going to go behind a pillar here, and I'm going to try to prevent him from baning me. So what do? I pop my talismans and I start pushing. He's going to pop his guard talisman, and now I'm going to avoid him. You're going to see some necros do this. I avoid him. I'm trying to make sure he can't bane me, because if you let yourself get baned, it's incredibly hard to catch a summoner around a pillar. They can kite you forever around a pillar. You're never actually even going to get in range to cast Anchor if they can kite you forever around a pillar like that. So you have to be very careful in that situation, making sure that you don't get baned. However, in the current situation where banes don't work the same way, you do not have to play like this. So you see people play like this, you don't have to play like this. The one thing you want to be doing is making sure you keep Anchor up. So you can doom the pet, and the pet won't be able to cast any spells on you. You want to make sure you keep Anchor up, because around a pillar, you're never going to actually be able to land Fear unless you get lucky, very lucky with the geodata. Unfortunately for me, I doomed this pet, and when you doom the pet, don't do anything else. Pro tip, don't fear it, because fucking retarded summoners don't realize that doom is on their pet, and they're going to keep the pet on you. But if you fear it, they might try and resummon it. So you just doom it, you let it, you can let it attack you a little bit. That's totally fine. Don't accidentally cast Anchor on the pet. That's retarded. And now I have to run around for 40 seconds and basically hope to land something. And I almost lose, but luckily Anchor does eventually come up and I land it, and that's the win. All right. So again, this is very similar. Same guy. Very similar situation. I'm trying to make sure he cannot hit the Banes on me in this matchup, right? That's what I'm trying to do here. So I'll show you again. Hold on. I'm trying to make sure he can't hit the Banes. I'm sending the pet on him. I'm trying to avoid his nukes and make it stop casting due to line of sight. Then when the debuffs are out, I'm going to fear it, and then I'm going to go after him, Anchor, doom the pet the second time, keep him feared, and it's over. As soon as the pet's doomed, it's over, right? That's like the easy win. Again, I'm trying to avoid the Banes. However, you don't actually need to avoid Banes anymore. It's not necessary to avoid Banes anymore. So what do you want to do in these situations? My opinion, you run up to him as quickly as possible, and you sit next to him, you double talisman, and you break his talisman. And you double talisman with UD second, and you have a Majestic set on. And if you need to, so this is this is basically what you want to be doing. You double talisman right next to him at the start, and you try and break his debuff talisman. I think that's the easiest way to do it, because you no longer have to avoid the Banes. Now, in a situation where he gets away from you, for example, he is behind this pillar and you are behind this pillar, or worse than that, he is behind this pillar and you're behind this pillar. The pet's going to be on you, right? Right here. Your pet's going to be on him. You're going to try and talisman, and he's going to try and kill you with the pet. What do you do in this situation? Your best bet is actually to debuff the pet. It seems very fucking weird, but that is actually your best bet in order to try and win this matchup, is to 5 debuff the pet and fear the pet. And I'll show you an example of that. I believe there should be an example in Console's video somewhere. Because what happens, your idea to yourself is, okay, I'm here, he's here. Okay? Circles are the pets, right? I 5 debuff the pet and then fear it in the opposite direction. He is simply going to resummon it. That's totally fine. 100% fine. That is what you want. Why is that what you want? Excuse me. That is what you want because by the time the second pet gets around to you, his guard talisman is off and you don't have to 5 debuff it anymore. You simply fear it or you doom it. That's the whole point. That's literally the point. And people misunderstand this pretty heavily. The goal of 5 debuffing a pet and fearing it isn't that it's going to be feared for 7 seconds and they're not going to resummon it. No, it's when they resummon it, their guard will be out by the time it gets to you and you are free to debuff that summon for free without worry that it's going to, that you're going to get fucked, basically. That's the goal. That's the whole point. That's why you 5 debuff the pet in a situation like that. So you can 5 debuff the pet, fear it. He's going to resummon it. You fear the next one as you're pushing up on him. That's the goal. As you're pushing up on him, you're fearing the pet non-stop to get closer and closer as you're pushing up. So I can show you an example that should be here from Merc. That should show something to that effect. Now let's try and find which one it is. I would imagine it's this one. Against a summoner. Let's try and look. This is a DA. This is a necro. Necro should be in the pillar, no, in the fountain or the open arena. Necro. This could be it here. No, DA. It might be actually in console's video. Let's find necro. Let's find it. Sorry. Necro again. No, it might actually be in one of console's videos. I think this is a very valid strategy to try and do against a summoner, actually. This is what he does right here. I think this is the most valid strategy. Now that there are no Banes that go through your talismans, here's the double talisman. Guard first, UD second, especially because you're going to be able to cast Crown after the UD talisman is down. You have really no worry. What's he going to do? He's going to run back to his base and cast the second one. So what does Console do here? He casts the Crown. He's going to take some damage, but he's going to be able to get off 5 debuffs super fucking quickly. There's the fear. There's the forget, and now he needs to doom. Now he needs to fear or doom this pet. He's going to fear it, which works perfectly fine, and I think this is the one I'm thinking of. So what happens? The resummon comes out. He looks at it. He's going to fear it, and you see this stutter movement here. Okay, he's running up. The stutter movement is very important. He's running up to him. He casts fear, and he kites back. He kites back. Very important. He kites back. If that fear fails, he's kiting back and fearing and then pushing up again in a second. Okay? He's kiting back. You can get 2 or 3 fears off before it gets next to you if you're kiting back. So that's your goal. Like, if you're pushing up, you're fearing it as you're pushing up. He's going to continually try to resummon. And importantly, every time he tries to resummon, it's going to be buffless. It's not going to have Cov. It's not going to have, the prophecy that it has that ups its damage by quite a bit. It's not going to have Empower. It's not going to have Haste. And you have a better chance of him not casting that on him if he's worried about you catching up to him. If he's constantly resummoning it, he's going to do less damage to you as well, which is also very important. Then he's going to get close because the stun lands on contact, and the game's over. The game in this situation's over. Okay, now what is the other thing? Why do I have all of these other videos open? Okay, these are for other ideas on how you can play certain matchups and how you can play the game. Okay, so here, this is notable as well. Here, he doesn't actually need to worry too much about pushing up on demigods because his talisman is later than demigods by about 1.5 seconds. So this is the DA matchup. He doesn't have to push up because he's about 1.5 seconds ahead on talisman. He has to stay close. If demigods casts a talisman with no gap in it, which he does not, he should be able to just get killed right between. And if he casts one with no gap, then all Console has to do here is cast his own with no gap. And again, that 1.5 second timer is still going to be there. He's still going to have a 1.5 second advantage, and he's going to be good to go. Now let's look versus more summoners. I think Console had the right idea of how to play against summoners, and most people did not. I think that what he does here is very intelligent. Again, avoiding the summoner. He's trying to avoid the Banes. He doesn't get baned. 5 debuff the summon. By the time that resummon comes out, the guard talisman's off. Ran is playing like a fucking retard here. Honestly, he's playing way too close. He gets feared, and it's over. Okay. Now, what are these other videos here for? This other video here is to show you a strategy you can use that I think is actually very fucking relevant and very important to have in your mind as something you can potentially be doing. Okay. This is not versus summoner. This is versus a dagger. Which one is versus summoner? One of these is versus a summoner, and you're going to see exactly why I have this open. It should be this one. Okay, let's back up a little bit. What happens in this? What happens in this game? There's the 5 debuff. He's going to fear it. Summons don't get feared very often, by the way. It's like they have a way high debuff resist. What happens? Okay, he's keeping his summon on him. This is something nobody else does, and I think, however, I never got the time to practice it because I didn't have a level 79 necro to use in Olympiad for very long. I never got to actually fully test this idea. But what happens? He keeps his summon on him, and when he gets stunned, he stuns the summon. Your summon will land stun on your opponent's summon a ridiculously high percentage of the time, and it can really allow you to survive. If that summon was sitting there hitting, this guy's name is Lucia, by the way. If that summon was sitting there hitting Lucia the whole time, probably Lucia ends up dying because it does a shit ton of damage. However, because he kept his summon on him, he was able to stun that summon and prevent it from actually DPSing him and getting the kill potentially. This is something you can definitely use against every type of summoner in the current meta. I think you can use it very effectively against the majority of summoners in a lot of matchups. I think it's very relevant to be doing this because the pressure you gain from having your summon on your opponent, I don't think is that high. It does help a little bit. It makes him a little bit more worried about resummoning and actually full buffing his summon as it's running out. It also means you can stun the summoner, but in matchups, in this arena specifically, in the open arena, the stun actually doesn't do fuck all. I don't think it's very important to stun. I think having your summon on yourself and stunning the pet when relevant to stun the pet. Example, you're failing a couple of fears, which will sometimes happen on Necro. Occasionally, you'll fail several debuffs in a row. For example, one time I failed 7 debuffs in a row against a pet when I had epics, by the way, and he did not. Having that stun as a backup, as a possible thing you can do to prevent that pet from killing you while you're fearing it, it's definitely something you can consider doing. It also ensures that your pet is in transfer pain range. This is very underrated. This is incredibly underrated, okay? Incredibly underrated is this fucking idea. If his pet was on his opponent right now, okay, where does his opponent run? Let's see. Where does his opponent go around the corner? Your pet transfer pain range is only like 1100, 900, something like that. If his pet is on his opponent right now and his opponent runs across the arena, if his opponent is here and you're here, your pet is not transferring damage anymore, and this thing will fuck your day up. So having your pet next to you also ensures that it's always transferring damage instead of getting out of range, which I think is also a very relevant portion of why this is a potentially successful strategy. Now, in that case, the guy ran around the corner like a fucking retard instead of running up next to him, but I think it's still a relevant idea. So now he's got the situation almost won. That's when he sets the pen on him. That's when he, goes for the kill, and that's going to work out perfectly well for him. I think this is, again, a very relevant strategy that you can potentially be using. Another strategy that this guy uses that most people don't use, I think he uses it, is the idea that against a dagger, you want to be running around these pillars. This is another idea that I think most people don't seem to understand. So if you're playing a dagger, and that dagger has bluff, you want Majestic on, obviously, to prevent the bluff from landing. It's going to land very rarely if you have Majestic on. And instead of what you would normally be doing, in these situations where you are kind of sitting with your back against the wall, you run around the pillar because when he comes out of hide, he's going to land 1 stab on you, and if you're running around the pillar, he's only going to land 1 stab. He's not going to be able to catch you to land a 2nd stab or even shadow step to you to land a 2nd stab if you are running around the pillar correctly, and then his guard is out and then you kill him. I think that's the most effective way to play against daggers in the pillar arena. I think it also works very well in the fountain arena as well. I think it's a very relevant way to try and play against daggers. You try and kite around the pillar and you make it very hard for him to actually land more than 1 or 2 stabs. And while you may get unlucky that those stabs hit you, unfortunately, no matter how far into the corner your back is, he will always be able to hit you from behind when he shadow steps you at least once or twice. And he's also going to hit you from the front quite often. So I think kiting around these pillars makes more sense. All right, let's continue skipping around this video. This is the video where he's kiting around the pillars, right? Yeah, I think this is the one. Slog gets on him, but look, he's kiting around the pillar, and he's preventing anything from happening until his talismans are out, and then he's good to go. So I think this is a very relevant way to play on Necro, and as well, it's a very relevant way to play on Summoners. Now, the other thing to realize is that actually your 79 summon can be a debuff when you're playing against daggers. I think this is something that almost nobody realizes, but this was actually a metagame situation on Grand Kane, because there was a dagger, I believe it was Haber or someone playing his dagger in Olympiad, that showed that killing the Necro pet is an incredibly effective way to actually kill the Necro, because you take away his ability to transfer pain. And if you look at Necro here, the Necro pet situation, the Cursed Man has significantly less HP than either of the other summons, 2k less. It also has less PDEF, level 1, which is what you're going to have in most situations, 569 PDEF, 5500 HP. It does a shit ton more damage, but if you look at the Reanimated Man, which is the highest level that you're going to get, 7200. It's got nearly 2k more HP, and it's got an extra 50 PDEF. This is actually pretty fucking important. A dagger can come out of hide, one-shot your pet, and then shadow step on you and hit you with a 2 or 3 skills, and you're going to have a tough time surviving those without transfer pain actually being up. So definitely something to realize as well. You're going to see in later videos that I'm not showing here, Lucia will actually be running a skeleton instead of this 79 summon a lot of the time, because of that metagame, because of that situation. Now, most daggers on stealth probably don't do that, in which case keeping your 79 summon out is probably a good idea. However, it's just something to think of in certain scenarios against certain people. Okay, is there anything else interesting that I can actually talk about here? I think Lucia also has a very interesting way of playing a lot of matchups. I would highly recommend you watch this guy's videos just to get an idea of how to play in certain matchups in certain situations that the majority of people you play against will not be doing. Okay, the majority of people you play against will never ever play like this player. I think it's definitely very important to have an idea of how this guy plays, just to see a different type of playstyle. And what do I mean by a different type of playstyle? Well, first of all, he's one of the few people that keep his summon next to him. I think he might be the only one that keeps his summon next to him to stun the pet of other summoners. He also likes to play off of talismans. He will very often try and, against Necros as well, he'll cast his talisman later than the other Necro, and then he'll simply kite around a pillar until the other player's talisman's out, and then use the extra 1 second he has on his talisman to get a free fear off. This is something that the majority of other Necros do not ever do, and I think it's a relevant potential playstyle, but oftentimes I don't think it's as good as just straight up debuffing someone, especially if you know you can do it faster. But he does find his own clever way of figuring out how to deal with beating someone who can potentially 5 debuff him faster than he can 5 debuff them. Definitely think it's a relevant idea to think about. Okay. Now, is there anything else that's relevant? Yes, actually, one of my other videos is going to highlight this one of my ideas in a fairly relevant manner. It's against, yes, it's this setup. It's this matchup. Okay, so let me show you what I do against this. This is very similar to the way Necros played, except, you know, different except similar. Okay, so what happens? So I'm fighting this guy. He's gonna land his stun on me, and what do? I'm gonna send my pet onto his summon to stun his summon instead of keeping it on me, or keeping it on him. So I'm doing less damage to him, but I'm making sure that his pet can't kill me while I'm stunned. So I'm getting low HP here. I need some time to survive, and potentially I could just be getting instantly hit by his stun. Which means I'm going to put my pet on his pet and stun his pet rather than keeping it on me. You're going to see me do this. I believe I already stunned it once here. You just didn't see it. Yeah, I definitely stun it in this fight, but for some reason I can't find the spot where I stun it. Yeah, I sent it on his pet at some point. It is aggroing me, but I think it's just an example of another way. Excuse me, it's just another example of how you can play versus, yeah, it's this fight where I definitely stun his pet a bunch of times. It's just an example of some of the things you can try and do against summoners as a necro, because, you know, elemental summoner has a stun on its pet, and necro also has a stun on its pet as well. So, trying to stay on his pet, resummon. I'm going to get stunned here at some point, in which case I stun his pet specifically rather than stunning the player. Where the fuck is this? Why can I not find this actual situation? Is it not this fight? Is it the other fight? Yeah, it must be in this other fight. Let's take a look at it. Speed it up a little bit. Speed 2x. So he stuns me. Yeah, there you go. That's the stun. I put the stun down on the pet, and it lands, by the way. And when you land stun on the pet, which, you know, again, it lands very often, it gives you some breathing room in situations where otherwise you would just be getting killed, because the pet does so much fucking damage to you. So I actually put it on his pet again in that situation and stun it again. So I stun it twice during this fight, which gives, again, some breathing room, especially if you get stunned by a cubic. Being able to stun his pet. Yeah, there's the third stun on the pet right there, because I'm low HP, because I got cubicked. Like, as soon as I get cubicked, I'm like putting it on his pet, or as soon as I start to get kind of low, I put it on his pet to give me some breathing room and give me an ability to actually, you know, not just die instantly. So I put it on his pet several times. This is something you can definitely do with Necro against Summoner as well. It's not only Summoner versus Summoner, it's definitely 100% something you can do with Necro against Summoner as well. Now, I will show you one more video. I think Consul is, again, a decent player to be watching. Not for his Necro versus DA matchup, because I think he plays those kind of shit, but for his Necro versus Summoner matchups, I think he plays fairly well. I think Lucia plays the Necro versus Necro matchup interestingly, and he's one of the only players where you're going to be able to see him actually core a fear. So again, this is another situation where he's trying to fear the pet gets resummoned, he goes back on the pet. Like, you're going to see this guy kite the arena quite well, because, you know, he's trying to make sure that the pet can actually kill him. So what does he do here? Look, I'll show you this fight here. Okay. So what is he doing here? So he's trying to avoid the Bane. So first of all, he's trying to mind game. Again, he's trying to mind game a little bit. You come out in the middle of the arena. If your opponent stays in base, that is perfect for you. You want him to stay in base. But if your opponent comes out here, then you back up. Unfortunately for him, though, he's going to take a little bit too long to realize what he's doing. He's going to back up a little bit too late, and he's going to be popping his talismans in the middle of the arena. And when you're double talismaning, he can get a little bit closer. He pops a Bane, and as soon as that Bane goes off, he goes, all right, I'm fucked anyway, so he runs after him, right? As soon as he gets Bane, you're no longer trying to avoid Banes, because it's pointless, because you already got baned, right? So then he's going to pop his crown. There's the fear on the summon, right? Then he's going to kite back because Contact got his talisman up again. And what is he going to try and do? He kites back so he can cast his own guard before this, before the summon gets to him. That's his goal, because Contact casted his guard, which means, you know, breaking that talisman. Contact is staying here. This is actually a bait. This is something that only good elemental summoners will do. You stay out here as a bait because the Necro will want to push up and try and 5 debuff you. However, because you're so close to the corner, as soon as he starts debuffing you, you go into the corner, and all you've done is buy time for your opponent to be doing more and more damage to the Necro, while the Necro is trying to do something that he'll never be able to do, which is 5 debuff you. So instead of buying into the bait, he backs up, casts his own talisman. Then he's gonna wait a second for this for Contact's guard to go down. Then he's gonna fear it, and then he's gonna pop a talisman while it's feared. It doesn't matter if Contact resummons his summon or if Contact doesn't resummon it. Either way, that summon is not getting to Consul before that UD talisman goes off. So then there's no resummon, and this is part of the reason that, like, you can see that stun's failing a lot. If you're playing a summoner with Majestic, you're never fucking stunning him. It's just not landing. The land rate of the Necro summon on stun is actually very low. It's almost not even worth using. He's eventually going to get up close, land fear, forget on the summon, and the fight is over. All right. So I will show you one other thing that I've already shown in a different video. However, I think is still relevant to show because, again, I'm showing this as a kind of all-in-one video in this situation where I'm trying to show as many things as I can. We can look at the video where I show where is it? For some reason my unlisted videos aren't showing up right now. Let me just refresh. Unlisted videos still not showing up right now. Switch accounts for a second, then switch back. See if that fixes it. Still not showing up. Okay, hold on. YouTube Studio, so I can actually get to my shitty fucking videos. Video. Yeah, see this I already explained this in a different video, but I'll explain it one more time. Just from the necro POV, so you understand exactly what's happening. Search across your channel. Open arena. Open. Let's just look up open. Open arena DA versus necro strat. So this is not actually a 100% win rate, but it is a 100% win rate against the vast majority of players you're going to be playing against. So what do? As a DA, he comes out, he fears, and then he pops his second talisman. You're most likely almost 100%, unless you play me, you're not going to see someone ever do this, because this is something that for some stupid fucking reason people don't think is actually a viable strategy. They're fucking idiots, by the way. It's the most viable strategy on the open arena. Okay, so pop fear, instantly pop second talisman. Now, what are the two options that the necro can do? The necro can anchor you. However, if I have DC on, which I do, and I have fortitude popped, which, you know, this is the testing phase. Dark Warrior is on my side. We're trading wins here, and I asked him if he could test this DA versus necro strategy, and so I could test it out and make sure that it actually works, because I had just theory crafted it myself a long time beforehand, and I had seen, you know, and I wanted to test it, you know, I wanted to test to make sure that this thing that I theory crafted actually worked. Funnily enough, Merc also theory crafted the same thing independently, and we both came up with it on our own. So anyways, so fear, he's going to anchor me, but if I have fortitude up, which should be right here, if I have fortitude up, that anchor is almost never landing. And so this is one option. He doesn't cast a second talisman. He tries to break mine. By the way, you can't, and that's just a waste of time. You just suicide by trying to break yours. And also, he actually cores my fear here. He's practicing that. He cores my fear. You see that? He cores the fear, and he doesn't get feared. The fear doesn't resist. He cores it. He does it at the perfect moment, and it gets cored. Okay. Now, strategy number two, potential number two. Again, we're practicing here. We're pretending it's an open arena. He's going to run at me. He's going to try and debuff me. There's the fear. There's the second talisman. He's going to go back and try and cast his own second talisman. But as soon as I cast Entangle, he can no longer cast a second talisman. I will break it before he can cast it. So I just break it. That's going to be Entangle, Chain, Entangle, plus the pet debuff right here. That's going to break it before he can cast it. There's the fear. Just in time. He's going to get his talisman up. I'm pretty sure his talisman actually lands. That's why I stay back, because I think his talisman actually casts, but he got feared just before the talisman buff got onto his bar, so I just waited out, and he's already lost the matchup. Now, what if they just cast the second talisman a little bit faster? Well, this is what happens when they cast the second talisman a little bit faster. Come out, fear, second talisman. Okay, next. He casts his second talisman early. I just run across the arena. That's all you do. Just run across the arena. That's it. Win. Now, as a necro, how do you manage to deal with that strategy? Because that seems like a fucking shit strategy to play against. And most likely, I would be thinking to myself, that means I can never beat DA, because DA actually, in theory, a very good DA should always beat a necro. Like, it shouldn't even be up to fucking chance. It shouldn't even be based on arena. With this strategy, if this strategy works 100% of the time, then a very good DA should always beat a very good necro with very little wiggle room unless you fail your fear. So what do? The necro wants to back up and then cast second talisman. Okay, that's what you want to do. As this necro, I fear, cast talisman. Right here, as soon as I do that, he wants to back up to here and cast his second talisman. That's all you do. the main thing you need to do is you need to recognize incredibly quickly that this is happening, okay? So that I don't get out of my talisman and cast Entangle or Hamstring before you start casting your second talisman. So you need to back up as much as possible, and you need to cast a second talisman. Now, does this actually prevent the talisman or the strategy from the DA? I'm not 100% sure because I haven't tested this quite enough, but I think it definitely probably does. It definitely probably does. The only problem is if you back up too far, then the DA goes back into his corner. You might actually have trouble getting to him and breaking his talisman quite in time, but you will have a time advantage on the talisman, so most likely you should be in a pretty good spot to actually win it. The only thing a DA can do in that situation is potentially try and sit here, fear you once, and then go back into the corner, have the pet debuff on you, and then try and chain hamstring, which I think is a losing strategy. In general, I don't think it's actually going to win. It's hard to say which one wins, but I definitely think Necro wins if you do that correctly. So as soon as the second talisman gets casted, you back up a few steps, so you just get a little bit of room to make sure that he can't just like blow by you, right? You back up a few steps and then you cast your own talisman. The main goal is you have to realize this very fucking quickly. The main thing is you have to realize this very fucking quickly. Again, the main thing is you have to realize this very quickly, because potentially backing up those steps doesn't actually even fucking do anything if you don't realize it fast enough. What it does do, the main thing it does, it creates a little bit of space, but it also creates a little bit of time for your summon to land a debuff or a stun debuff on him as you are as you're, casting your 5 debuffs. Because if your summon doesn't land the stun on him to be part of that 5 debuff combo, it doesn't actually matter, because I just throw in Blue Wolf, put up Fortitude, and I have stun resist, and it's not going to land stun on me anyways, so what the fuck does it even matter? It needs to be part of your 5 debuffs. You cannot 5 debuff me as I'm running by you, as long as I'm here. So basically, if the Necro is here and the DA is here, the Necro cannot 5 debuff you as you're running by. Or the Necro is here, yeah, the Necro is here and the DA is here. The DA only has to be a couple steps by. But as long as the Necro is here and the DA is here, or, anywhere behind there, and the DA is trying to run this direction, the Necro should be able to land 5 debuffs. So it's really about recognizing quickly and taking him down. Okay, is there anything else relevant to try and show here? I showed you Necro versus Necro, Necro versus DA, Destroyer, Necro versus DA. I will show you exactly what an early talisman cast actually looks like. Okay, I'll show you that. Let's try and find an early talisman cast. You should see it in one of these videos fairly simply. Sorry, I keep dropping this thing I'm fucking fiddling with. It's a very simple strategy that almost, here's the thing, dude. A lot of this shit is very simple. It genuinely is very simple if you do your research. If you look at these videos and you try and analyze the videos with a thinking mind, you should be able to figure this type of thing out, and oftentimes, you will be able to figure this type of thing out. That's a lot of how I learned Necro, was theory crafting a little bit myself and picking up other things from playstyles of other people. For example, Console's idea versus Summoners, I think, was very good, and other people have good ideas. Doesn't necessarily even need to be a better player, because each matchup is its own thing. And when you're trying to analyze a player, is a player a 10 out of 10 in Necro versus Necro? He could be a 10 out of 10 Necro versus Necro, 1 out of 10 Necro versus Summoner. Very potential. Very, very possible. Most people, if you're good at one thing, you're probably good at multiple things. But again, you're probably have some matchups you're better at and some you're worse at. So you can look at someone that's, theoretically worse than you as a player that has a better grasp or a better understanding of a certain matchup and try and pick up some of the things that they're doing to try and win. Here's going to be an early talisman cast. The Anelka, here's talismans together. Wait. Look at the time. 5 seconds left he casts. He casts it at 5 seconds left. Then the Anelka is going to wait and cast his like a fucking retard. Okay, so I've already explained this. There's the summon debuff. Again, he times this early. The talisman isn't casted yet, but he times it early. So that it goes off just as that talisman goes off. Once you've practiced this enough, you're going to find that timing correctly. Then he's going to go, you can see it here on the bar. What does he do here? There's the weakness, chaos, weakness, and gloom. So what does he do? Let's show this again. Second talisman. Weakness, chaos, right? Gloom, weakness. There you go. That's 5. 5 debuffs up. The reason you do 5 is because it's a pillar arena. If it's a different arena, you don't really need to do 5. But also, if it's a different arena, you don't necessarily need to do a second talisman early, because an early second talisman does cause problems. If you can see, he just got the debuff off, and his talisman is already out. So an early second talisman does cause problems, because look, when Leonelka actually finally casts his own talisman, there's only like, what, 6 seconds left on this talisman. Yeah, 7 seconds left on the talisman by the time Leonelka casts the second talisman. So you have to be very careful. You probably don't need to do this on other arenas other than the pillar arena. The other thing to realize, if you go back to my video, let's go all the way back to my video, you'll see something I do versus DAs that's also very relevant. I think I hadn't mentioned this earlier on in the video. Hold on. Where is it? Here you go. Okay, so what I do against a DA here, you're gonna notice these buffs. These buffs look a little bit weird. Why did you buff like that, Vu? Because if you look at this, this thing here, what does this say? Well, let's translate it for you. The procedure for removing buffs from a target using Smashing Body. Smashing Body is just cancel. So this is just the way cancel works. Cancel will take off your lowest level debuff, the debuff learned at the lowest level, the vast majority of the time. Which means Windwalk, level 2 is learned at something like, what, level 30, and Shield, level 2, learned at 46, are the lowest level debuffs you have, which means they will be canceled the vast majority of the time. In 90% of cases here, 90%, one of these two was canceled. Which means you don't want Windwalk canceled. You desperately don't want Windwalk canceled. So what am I casting here? This is literally fucking Clarity, which by the way is garbage. It's like, it costs more manage to cast active Clarity than you actually save if you're recharging someone your full mana pool during active Clarity. However, it's a self buff that can possibly get cancelled, but the main thing I'm doing is I'm taking Bless the Body and not Shield. And the reason you take Bless the Body is because you can cast yourself Shield. You can cast Shield on yourself to be an extra buff to be cancelled, and also, because you're a Necro, it is a lower level debuff with much more likelihood to be cancelled when you get cancelled by their summon, which is why you're very rarely going to see me actually have my Windwalk cancelled. Look right here, what got cancelled here? So you have Might, Concentration, and the Augment. This is what gets cancelled, right? Cancelled Shield, Concentration, and the Augment. Didn't cancel Windwalk. Very fucking important. It needs to not cancel Windwalk. And you're gonna notice this. Merc did this. Like, this is very important that you play like that against DA. So again, he's gonna cancel me here. What did he take off? He took off Might and Concentration and Zerk, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, he took Might, Concentration, and Zerk. So again, didn't take Windwalk, didn't take Acumen. Those are the only two buffs you really, really care about. Need to not take off Windwalk and not take off Acumen. Let's see what happens here. What does he take off here? He's going to cancel me. There's cancel. He takes off Might. He takes off Zerk. And the Augment, again. He keeps taking off the Augment because the Augment is used by a low-level Lifestone, which means it is a low-level Augment. Which means it's a low-level skill. Good to go. I actually think it might not be about the level the skill was learned, but rather the actual level of the skill. Because I think Concentration is like level 3-ish. Shield is level 1. Windwalk is 2. Zerk is 1, right? Zerk is 1. Haste is 3. Acumen is 3. And the Augment is 2. The Augment is level 2. Right? So what is it mostly taking off? It's mostly taking off the shit that's level 1 and level 2. Might and Shield and the Augment. I think that might be what it's about. That's why it's taking off Windwalk, which is level 2, and it's also taking off Zerk quite often, which is also level 2. So that's just something to realize there about that. Is there anything else to realize? I think I've basically gone over everything interesting in this situation. So, let's check out all these other videos. The other thing Lucia does that nobody else really does is understand that it's actually something that Merc doesn't do, which is somewhat surprising in these situations. You don't actually have to start with weakness. It's actually more efficient if your timing is correct to start with fear and not weakness. How do you start with fear? Okay, so you notice how I mentioned he's starting to cast stun before the talisman is casted. You do the same thing with fear. And that's also going to bridge the gap. It's going to mean that you can go fear, chaos, weakness, gloom. That's 4 debuffs. You got the summon debuff. That's 5. Then you fear and you're good. Done. Or you anchor. That's something that Lucia does that these other players don't, including Merc does not do this either. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find an example of him doing this because this is something that is a rare situation to even see someone doing. But you can definitely see him doing it if you watch enough of his videos. And thankfully, he makes fucking 30-minute long videos. So, yeah. Let's see, does he actually do it here? He definitely does it in this video. I'm quite certain he does it in this video in particular where he casts the fear as the guy's finishing his second talisman. I've seen him do it against me as well, actually. So let's see, does he do it? Maybe he early second talismans, maybe... No, he does not early second talisman. I'm pretty sure it's this video where he does do it at some point. But I mean, even looking through these videos, I'm not sure why I'm doing it. It's pretty much completely pointless. But you can actually see how he plays against necros here. It's a little bit different than you're going to imagine most people playing against necros. And I think I can show you here. So what does he do? So he's playing against console. Yeah, let's take a look at this. 10 seconds. Maybe you'll get an idea of how Lucia plays against necros in this situation. I think it's somewhat relevant. So console's going to cast his. Look, you see he's playing on the timing here, right? You see that? He's playing on timing. He's got 2-second advantage on his talisman, right? And what he does is he tries to play him here. This is a mind game because console doesn't think that he's going to try and 5 debuff his talisman, probably because in the meta, console most likely beats Lucia to the 5 debuffs. That's most likely why he's playing this strategy to begin with. So what does console do? He starts nuking the summon. Lucia starts to 5 debuff him. He lands 5 debuffs. Console's going to run around behind a pillar and recast his second talisman. And now Lucia is going to wait a second and then recast his. So he's got his talisman up. He's got about a 1-second advantage. And he could be juking here, actually. I'm surprised he's not juking. Usually he'll be juking in these situations. But he's actually just going to chase him down because Console's actually fucking retarded. Never mind. It's different if you play against someone that's like fucking mentally challenged. Okay. I'd love to show you exactly how he starts the second debuff cast. Starts breaking the second talisman, I mean. Oh, you should see it here, right? No, that's not it. I'm just wasting time here, aren't I? This is terrible fucking play. Like, this should never work. Just for the record, this should not be a functioning strategy that actually works. Why? Because he casts his second talisman when he's right next to the fucking DA. It should really never be working, honestly. This glitch here, you see the summon get stuck on the wall here. This is because he used move to target instead of attack. You need to spam attack when the match starts if you use move to target. You have to be very careful with that. Here versus Hoodlum, not interesting. Actually, this is one where he tries to nuke him down, isn't it? This is one where he goes for the full kill. Oh, I think this might be interesting. Okay, so what he's going to do here is he's going to land Doom. It's going to be the last one I watch, and I was going to turn it off after this because this video is probably fucking hella long right now. So he guards and then he runs away. He's just running away through guard because he's worried about dying to Hoodlum just by damage. He's trying to run away. Then he's going to land Doom at some point here. Yeah, he lands Doom, and he's going to try and nuke him down immediately, which is a non-winning strategy, in fact, because Hoodlum will not die quickly enough. So he doesn't die. Now Hoodlum can cast Zealot and Frenzy at any time he wants here. Wait, what the fuck? And does he just straight up fuck up? Yeah, he just straight up does an immortal. What I was thinking would happen is that in this situation, as soon as Doom is out, he runs back, right? And then you talisman back here, and you just try and kill him from range before he can get out. Because if you force him to use Immortal Life early, you can just continue to nuke him down later. Oh yeah, this is an example of the way Lucia will play a Necro versus Necro match, which is somewhat interesting. So what does he do here? I don't think this is necessarily the best strategy, but it's a strategy, and it's an interesting one. He gets about a 1 second advantage on talismans here, and instead of trying to 5 debuff, he's going to juke around the pillar, which is what a deal will do against a Necro. And if you play against someone that can't juke well, so he's going to wait it out. He doesn't get 5 debuffed. 1 second left, comes out Fear, and he's a little bit late. He's just half a second late, but Covenant was not playing for that. Covenant didn't even realize the situation, did he? Or I think actually Covenant got 5 debuffs off. Actually, that might have been it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so he did get 5 debuffs off. So the advantage was no longer there. However, again, it's the idea of it. If the advantage hadn't been there, I think he actually does get this fear off in time, or he could get this fear off in time potentially. So what's happening here? Nothing very interesting. Well, unfortunately, I can't find the fight where he starts off the break of the second talisman with fear. However, I can assure you that it's definitely something that people do, and actually I did it. I can probably find it in one of my videos before I could find it in one of his videos, because my videos are significantly shorter than his videos. So if we scroll all the way down, we should be able to find it here at some point. I can also show you something here off DA. Should be in this video or this video where I actually show this idea. Let's just speed it up to 2x. Yeah, I don't use it in this video. Apparently I didn't realize it was a strategy yet, but you can see the early second talisman idea. So what do I do here? Wait, no, he's just slow as fuck. Okay, it's not even an early second talisman, isn't it? It's just terrible. Yeah, I remember that. One day you may. It's not interesting. Oh yeah, this is one that goes somewhat sideways for different reasons. It's not this video, it must be the next video. Not that video either. Okay, so one thing I can show you is, again, a very similar way of how you play versus summoners when they don't have, when they used to have old Banes. You can see I'm standing behind this pillar. I push up. He's going to pop his own guard talisman, then I'll back up. Actually, the most perfect example is against Iventa on the third match, I believe. I play against him, the second one in the open arena. This is how the metagame works. So I'm staying back. I pop UD. I'm pushing. He's going to guard. And as soon as he guards, I back up. Then we continue through the video. 2x. He's going to push up. I'm avoiding. I'm pushing up off my second UD. He's going to guard again. I'm backing up again. There, you've traded 2 talismans now. I'm back in my base. I could resummon my Panther there, but I don't. Chain, stun the summon, and then I'm going to run up and fear him. And he's got no real chance to do anything against it because I've drawn out both of his talismans and I'm in a good spot. So that's it.